Hey guys, welcome to another Legacy Enchantress video. This is Spatula of the Ages. Today, rather than doing a league, I'm actually just going to, this is going to be a relatively short video, just kind of talking about some of the card choices in Enchantress generally, but I am going to be focusing on the Witch House, so like a Living Wish centered version of Enchantress. So, a couple things, I guess, to start off with. I'm gonna kind of take this from the assumption that you're looking into Enchantress, and it's something that you don't necessarily know too much about. So some stuff might be redundant, but just bear with me. If you're already familiar with the archetype. So obviously, like the foundation of an Enchantress deck is gonna in Legacy, it's gonna be Argothian Enchantress and Enchantress Presence. I mean that's maybe there are like specific like fringe decks that like might veer away from that for whatever reason, but like generally speaking, this is going to be your core. The other part of the core, in my opinion, is going to be Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth. These are your ramp effects, like the way that like a Chalice deck, like it powers up Chalice, but it uses Ancient Tomb and City of Traders. These are your Ancient Tomb and City of Traders. Um, Obviously, it's a little bit different because like you're putting an extra card in, so like in that sense, like it's more like a delayed Chromox or something like that. Um, but like it obviously has the advantage of working with the engine once you get going. Um, so that's like kind of the core of any deck. Normally, obviously, you'd run, so that'd be like 16 cards. But because we're running Living Wish, it's going to be 15 because we're going to have one Argothian in the Wish board. Living Wish again, so like that's a specific deck choice. Like uh, the advantages and disadvantages. Like the advantages, obviously, like it increases your threat density and gives you flexibility, like the ability to find outs to situations that other versions might not have. The downside, you have a marginal decrease in your chances of getting a turn 2 Enchantress because you're running one less Argothian. Because you generally aren't going to be able to get your Living Wish Enchantress online till turn 3, whether you stagger it or not. Um, Generally, sometimes you can. Um, but yeah, so the upshot is flexibility and threat density. The downside is it's a little bit slower, and you've got it effectively like increases your curve. Like even though it's 2 mana here, like realistically you could put it like over at the 4 mana slot because most of the time that's what you're going to be spending on it. So then realistically the curve would look a little bit different. Because obviously, it's 66 cards. This isn't like a really representative deck. Anyway, so those are the initial choices. Elephant Grass is the strongest card in the deck, like in my opinion. I think I mentioned this at some point in a couple of videos, but like Elephant Grass is just really, really solid, especially like in the metagame right now. Well, it was good in the last metagame too. It's just like kind of the card that makes the difference in most of your favorable matchups. Like most of your favorable matchups are going to be decks that have a hard time dealing with Elephant Grass. Whether it's because like they're relying on like Pyromancer or like Goblins, like they're relying on like a swarm of creatures, or whether it's or like Dredge, or whether it's because they're running like Gurmag Angler and or like even Dark Depths. Um, and they can't attack because their creatures, like their main threats, are black creatures. So like Elephant Grass is a huge card, and then it's, also the fact that it's so cheap. Abundant Growth is probably the next best one drop. I ran Ground Seal. I'm still running Ground Seal for years in Enchantress. I started playing when actually back when Bazaar of Baghdad, so like in 1.5, Bazaar of Baghdad, like Dragon was like probably the most dominant deck. So like Ground Seal mattered in that metagame, but like I kept it around because of the fact that like it draws a card when it comes into play. That may seem insignificant, but like if you have a high threat density, like and you don't have an Enchantress online, you'd like to keep digging to get to your next Enchantress. before you give them time to find their next piece of disruption. Um, it also means that like when you do resolve, like a lot of the times, like with Enchantress, you're playing against decks with disruption, and you resolve one Enchantress, and you need to draw as many cards as you can before they find an answer to it, whether it's like Council's Judgment or Terminus or Edict, um, or sideboard like Crows and Grip, or Ethersworn Canonist or something. Like you need to find an answer ASAP. Or sorry, you don't need to find an answer ASAP. You need to get gas ASAP. So like one thing, like Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth are gas because they're just free cards. But Abundant Growth and Ground Seal are also gas because they dig that extra card. That makes a big difference. You know, when you've got that one Enchantress online, and then like once you've got like multiple Enchantresses online, if you have two Enchantresses, this is a Ancestral Recall, And the mana fixing isn't bad either, honestly. Like it lets you run a really like durable mana base. You only have to have like one of each dual land, and you can support 3 colors, even like in theory, like more maybe. So Abundant Growth is really solid. I'm not running Exploration right now, but I'm just talking about card choices, so I'll just mention it. I'm not running it because I'm running Gaia's Touch instead. I think Gaia's Touch is better because of the ability to bank mana with it effectively. Also because it's 2 mana, so like you do have to worry about your vulnerability to Chalice at 1. Chalice is a really popular card right now. Even worse than Chalice at 1 is Sanctum Prelate at 1, because at least with Chalice you can like cycle off an Enchantress, like draw cards, but you can't. They're just gonna sit in your hand until you deal with that Sanctum Prelate. So yeah, so I'm not running Exploration, but like it's a fine card. Some versions of Enchantress might prefer it. Like if you're running fewer basic forests, like you can't really get away with Gaia's Touch, and you might want that additional gas, like beyond the 8 wild growth effects. So Exploration is an option. Miri's Guile. I like it as a 1-of. Some people run like 3 of these things. I think that's really excessive. Because like beyond the first one, they don't do anything. Like literally the second one, unless you've got a fetch land like on board in your upkeep, like just doesn't do anything at all. Even the first one, obviously, like it doesn't give you its card disadvantage like by itself, but it does give you that card selection, especially like in the early turns that can matter. Like it's not really that good if you drop it past turn 3, but like making sure you hit all your early land drops can be important in this deck. So Mirror's Guile can be helpful for that. And it's another card that like control decks, like they don't necessarily have to deal with it, but if they don't, it's really helpful for you to be able to like keep digging for threats or the land drops that you need, and be able to to win the threat versus answer race. Alright, so those are the 1-drops. 2-drop, I already mentioned Argothian Enchantress. I already kind of talked about Ground Seal. I'll talk a little bit more. So like, obviously Deathrite Shaman is banned, so Ground Seal is not maybe quite as good as it was, but you still see a lot of Snapcaster and Life from the Loam around. Those are like the main things that it stops. It also stops Surgical Extraction out of the board, which a lot of people bring in. Like it still sees a lot of play, and a lot of people are bringing it in against us, which like is reasonable. It makes sense for them to do that. So like having Ground Seal is a useful card, and like I mentioned, it also just cycles. I already talked about Living Wish. Seal of Primordium, like it's okay. It's good against Sneak and Show and Death and Taxes and Stoneblade. It's not as hot against like Grixis Control or like the Delver decks, obviously. Like it can be good against the version of Miracles with Counterbalance, but they don't all run Counterbalance, and even then they like sometimes it's just a 1 or 2 of, so sometimes it doesn't do anything against them. It's a debatable slot, but like it does have a lot of flexibility. If you don't have it in your main deck, I think you should at least have one on the board, just because you'll get a lot of mileage out of it. Gaia's Touch, like I talked about it a little bit. So, obviously this is kind of a weird card. A lot of people haven't seen before. It's you know, with an Enchantress out, it's at least a free card that you're digging with. If you have the Forest, it gets you up a land drop. If you're running Replenish, it's even better, but I'm not running Replenish right now. But yeah, like over exploration, because the ability to go like turn 2 guys touch and then turn 3 have like 6 mana to, you know, to break a threat through like spell pierces, and like just have a really gassy turn. Is good against control decks. So you know, you just want a little bit more gas like in the deck, and I think touch is like your best option for that. Sterling Grove. I'm not running it right now. I've run it in the past. I am trying to reduce my reliance on non-green mana, so that's one of the reasons I'm not running it. It's not great against like miracles, for example, because of predict. Overall, it is. I mean, like by itself, it's card disadvantage, right? You're giving up the top card of your library and Sterling Grove to get like usually an Enchantress, you know, maybe like a Dimwake. But or like a Confinement. And like the Shroud can be useful, especially like with the creatures. Like, you know, it's good with Doomwake Giant and Eidolon, like it protects them. But I mean, it's a good card. I just don't think it is that necessary in this version, the Living Wish version of the deck. So Banishing Light or Oblivion Rain, like mostly the same thing. You know, I'm not crazy about these cards in theory. Like, it really depends on the metagame. But like with a lot of Planeswalkers and Sneak and Show around, I think they're good. Like, you know, against Delver decks, they're not as hot because you're just kind of spending 3 mana to deal with like a 1 mana creature. Like, it's pretty bad. You know, you're better off like setting up a global answer like Confinement or Grass most of the time. But like, you know, there are like a lot of problem permanents, like whether it's like Ethersworn Canonist or like Chalice of the Void, or like Sanctum Prelate, or, you know, even like, you know, like whatever the Rector decks and like Overwhelming Splendor, you know. And again, it's good against Sneak and Show, which is a really popular deck right now, so that makes it pretty solid, I think. Solitary Confinement. So like, this was like the heart of the Solitaire deck that we developed like in the early 2000s. It's not quite as good as it used to be, I think, because like Emrakul gets around it. Like it used to be like there just wasn't like any deck that had main deck answers to like deal with the confinement up. But like, and now Abrupt Decay is not as popular as it was like in the Deathrite metagame, but like people are main decking Abrupt Decay. So like it's not quite as strong as it was. But like there's still a lot of decks that just like can't, like Eldrazi or like Dragon Stomp, they just can't deal with a confinement. So Enchantress I mentioned. So Cast Out, the main advantages of Cast Out over Banishing Light are like that it can't be Abrupt Decayed, and it's good against Dark Depths, like because you can just another instant speed thing. Like Sorcery Speed answers aren't good against them. But like you can hit their token with a Cast Out, and that's another out you got against them. But like neither of those, both those things are kind of on the decline, so I don't think it's as necessary right now. Replenish is a really powerful card, but it's also like pretty situational, especially honestly, like it's probably not as good in the Living Wish version as it is in the version, like mainly because like Sterling Grove, like Replenish also like works really well with Sterling Grove. So like if you're running like a regular Enchantress list and you're not running Rest in Peace combo, then like Replenish is really strong. It's like kind of strong here, but it's a lot more situational because like a lot of your threats, like if they get countered, like Replenish doesn't bring them back, like, you know, Living Wish, Argothian, Green Sun Zenith. Like Presence is the only one that brings back. So and Eidolon actually, but actually it works really well with Eidolon and Doomwake because of the constellation. Anyway, so like Eidolon as a one-of is good as a Green Sun Zenith target. like you're running Green Sun Zenith, and it is like very necessary because you need those additional enchantresses, like to go get the Argothian. Like 3 mana, a 3 mana Argothian is still like a reasonable card. Um, but like sometimes you're just low on cards. You're like you got an Enchantress on board and you're chaining enchantments, and like if you stop chaining, maybe you're dead, or like you just need to establish something before they answer. So like getting another Argothian doesn't actually draw you a card right now, and then you need to like top deck an enchantment next turn. But if you green something for an Eidolon, you get that extra card, which can be the enchantment you need, to actually get ahead. And now you have an additional Enchantress effect. She is vulnerable to targeted removal, which is one thing some people hold against her. But like, if they lightning bolt her, you're still getting card advantage, right? Like they spent a card and your card cycled. So like, even though she's like not that cheap, she does give you card advantage against targeted removal. So like I wouldn't really worry too much about her getting killed. Doomwake Giant is a really, really strong card against like every fair deck in the format. Also like some unfair decks like Elves or Infect. But yeah, like against like Maverick, Delver, even the control decks. Like less so against Miracles, but like Grixis, like can only kill him with an Edict. Like he can't be fatal pushed, he can't be bolted, he can't be pulled against command, and he like kills all their Strixes and Snapcasters. Even against Miracles, like he can kill all their monks. And like if they STP him in response, like it can be an issue, but often they won't expect it. So like usually they're brainstorming away their targeted removal. Most of the time. So Green Sun Zenith, like I mentioned, you do need the extra Enchantress effects. So like, even like let's just assume I was playing all 8, that would be 8. But with Green Sun Zenith, I can effectively get up to like 11 or 12 Enchantresses plus Eidolon. I think 4 is a little too much because you don't really want to draw them like when you're trying to like go off and draw enchantments. I think 3 is probably the right number. So I guess like a couple notes about the mana base, because I'm going to mention Dryad Arbor obviously in relation to Green Sun Zenith. I'm not running it. Some people do, obviously. Obviously like it gives you another like turn 1 acceleration effect if you don't have a Wild Growth or Utopia Sprawl, or if you like don't have that many enchantments and you want to save that and you've got like a lot of threats in hand. Like if you have a high curve, maybe it's worth it. I think that like the problem is like Dryad Arbor really sucks to draw. Like you really don't want to draw it. It just doesn't do anything on its own. Yeah, so that's why I don't run it. Caracas, I'm actually like probably gonna drop this at this point. Like for a while, it made sense to just run one Caracas main. Like the white mana is not that useful, but like sometimes it matters. So it's not like it's a colorless land, but it's kind of close. But like without Leovold running around as much, it's mostly just like good against Sneak and Show, and it's like questionable against Death and Taxes because it can like bounce with Thalia, sure, but it also gets wastelanded. It's pretty, I think, debatable in that matchup. And like other than that, like I mean, like Dark Depths, but like that's kind of on the decline, and like you mainly see it, I guess, in lands now, and lands runs Wasteland as well. So, no, I don't think it pulls its weight anymore in the main deck. It's probably just better as a forest and reduce your mulligan rate. Serra Sanctum, I run 2. A lot of people run more. I think that's excessive, like 3 maybe, but like it's really dead in your opening hand, like 2/3 of the time, I'd say. And like can force mulligans, especially like if you draw it in multiples, right? Or like sometimes you like keep a hand like where you need a top deck a land, but like that land like it can't be a sanctum. Like if you mull down to like 5 and you keep a forest and it like you've got like an Argothian and a ground seal and like you could like do stuff, you just like need that extra land and then it's a sanctum, but you didn't have the wild growth, so it's not making any mana. So I mean, I think 2 is fine. Sometimes you have to like dig for it a little bit more, like when you're trying to go off and like cast that Emrakul. But like, I'd rather have that happen than like mulligan all the time. So I think 2 is sufficient. So time to get into the wish board. So I separated this before. Let me like quickly just like break out everything that's not wish board and talk about those real quick. Okay. So choke is like I always run 2 choke in like any board. For Enchantress, it's like by far your best sideboard card. Even though like Miracles like actually can play around it okay, you still shut down their ability to like cantrip. And there's a lot of decks that just is brutal against. Like it's brutal, so it's brutal against like the slower grindy decks. It's brutal against like mid range. It's brutal against even like Delver because like it makes Elephant Grass like almost a win condition if you've got a choke on board. They just like aren't able to do anything unless like they draw a lot of wastelands and are smart about holding on to them. Sealed Primordium. Like it's just incredibly flexible card. Like I said, you should have one, I think, somewhere in your 75 at least. It just you're gonna get a lot of mileage out of it. Like even probably like a 2-0. I don't know if I have more than 2, but like in the 75. But it's a really flexible card. Carpet of Flowers is really powerful, especially against Delver. Like it's good against like the slower decks. Like it's fine there, but like where it really shines is against Delver. Because like so much of their counters are like mana dependent, and like being able to just like completely blow past them is good. So that said, though, like it is like at the end of the day, it's kind of just like a better wild growth. So like if I had the sideboard slots, I might include like 3 of them or something. But like as a 1 or 2 of, I don't think it's that worthwhile because like then you're just like trying to get lucky with it, like that you draw it early because it's not like it's not like something you can go tutor for because at that point you're like spending all this mana just to like get more mana. It's not you're not really making sense at that point. Leyline of the Void. Obviously, this is a really powerful card in very specific matchups. Like, I think, if you realistically want to deal with Reanimator, like, I basically auto-lose to Reanimator. Like, Leyline of the Void obviously is a way to go. Like, Surgical is also an option. But you do have to have the slots for it. Like, it's not that good, really, unless you're running all 4. Just because like you need it obviously in your opening hand, and you kind of need to like mulligan. You kind of need the ability to mulligan a bit aggressively for it, like in order for it to be relevant. But if you're trying to win that matchup, like it's a way to go. I like Trial of Ambition. I think it's a pretty flexible card. I've got limited testing with it, but like it's good against Eldrazi. It's good against not Grixis Delver as much, but against like Canadian. It's good against Sneak and Show. It's good against Reanimator. It's I would say a flexible card. And one thing I like about it against like I don't know like decks like Eldrazi is like Oblivion Rain and like Banishing Light. Like if they all is dust, your work is kind of undone. But Trial just like it sticks around. Excellence Binding. Compared to like Cast Out and Banishing Light and Oblivion Rain, Excellence Binding is mainly, I think, got an advantage against the control decks. Like if you can Excellence Binding there, like Jace the Mind Sculptor, that's really, really solid. And obviously like you still bring it in against Sneak and Show, even though like at that point it's not that different than an Oblivion Rain. Like maybe if you get like if you get lucky and they try to go like early Emrakul, and then like that way they can't like cast Emrakuls off of Omniscience, but in that matchup it's kind of all the same thing. Nevermore is like a kind of general anti-combo card, like also against Eldrazi because you name all this dust, or Ugin if they're on like 12 post. So it's got like flexibility against like a lot of bad matchups. Like most combo decks are like either like at best 50-50 or like a negative matchup. So like, you know, it can be a worthwhile expenditure of a sideboard slot just because it kind of can be at least okay against almost all of them. Aura of Silence is good against Storm combo. It's also like obviously got flexibility against like Stone Blade and Death and Taxes, like any of those decks where you would want Seal of Primordium, but like the added bonus of being good against Storm. The mana, the double white is a little awkward in this version of the deck, but also it's really good in the mirror if that ever comes up. Blind Obedience I actually really like right now because of Sneak Attack. Like it's good against them. It's good against Elves, which is another problem matchup. It's okay against Storm and Shots of Lotus Petal, but not Lion's Eye Diamond, unfortunately. And the life gain can matter. And the life gain also means you can bring it in against like Burn, or like Turbo Depths even, where like they want you at exactly 20 life, and if you're at like 21, that's like basically buying you a turn. At least, you know, much of the time. So yeah, it's like it's got some other applications like goblins. Let's see what else. It's okay against Eldrazi just because of Reality Smasher. If they're running Trinisphere, it's better because like Trinisphere actually says that it doesn't work if it's tapped. So it gives you a turn to play around Trinisphere. But yeah, I mean it's more flexible than it looks like right now. So I don't know. It's an okay card. So then we're going to get into the wish board. So like, first I guess we'll talk about the enchantment creatures, because like, I do think you want 2 to 3 enchantment creatures, like, to be able to wish for, because like, not only do they do whatever it is that they do, but like, they also draw you cards with enchantresses out. So like, the first one, like, you should always run is Doomwake Giant, obviously. Like, this is the best enchantment creature, even though it's expensive, like, it can blow out a lot of games. It's a very powerful card. Aegis of the Gods gives you another out against combo decks. It's not the best because like it doesn't disrupt them like going off. It only stops the actual like Tendrils of Agony. So like unlike Gaddock Teeg, like for instance, he like stops Ad Nauseam, he stops Past in Flames. Like Aegis just stops Tendrils. Like I guess discard, but like it's still okay, but it's not as strong. Like I wouldn't rely on like just an Aegis saving you most of the time. Eidolon of Rhetoric is in theory better against Storm. I'm not that big a fan of it. Like for one, it's a little expensive to wish for. For another, like if you've got it in play, you're also like hampering your ability to go off, which means they can just like end a turn, bounce it. Like they can like play a cantrip a turn, maybe like brainstorms on your turn until they find a cantrip, and you're playing like 1 card a turn. So like assuming you like aggressively wished for it, like you probably don't even have an Enchantress out yet, so then you gotta play an Enchantress, then you gotta like dig for more stuff. Like it's slowing you down as well, and like the way that you're gonna generally win against Storm is to like have multiple hate pieces out, because like just a single piece is gonna get bounced or destroyed. So I'm not that crazy about it. I actually kind of like this card, although it rarely makes my cut. Just because, like, sometimes, especially like game 2 or 3, like after they've sided out their like targeted removal, it can be okay to like just actually just use your wish to get like a big beefy dude. And like Eidolon will often be like a 4/4 like minimum. By the time you're wishing for him. Which means that like yeah, that's fairly solid. Like against the grindy decks, like and then like if you actually have a target, like you know, like whether it's Gaddock Teeg that you brought in as a Green Sun Zenith target for okay, actually Gaddock Teeg's a bad example, that wouldn't work, but like Wickerbow Elder or Doomwake Giant or Eidolon of Blossoms you can bestow on it, and then like it's even better because like once they like Terminus or whatever, you get a creature like automatically because it just falls off. Let's see, Heliod, God of the Sun. I've been playing this guy recently. I like him. He's really solid, a solid wish target against control decks. Like he can't be Abrupt Decayed, he can't be Disenchanted. He pretty much can only be dealt with Council's Judgment once he resolves. and like you're never going to have devotion, so he can't be targeted even if they left in Swords of Plowshares or something. Um, and you know, he gives you the ability to just like keep making guys at instant speed. And the guys are enchantments, so they also like trigger Doomwake and Eidolon of Blossoms if they're out. So I like him a lot there. Brain Maggot is it's an okay card against combo decks mainly. There's some people I know that are like experimenting with running more of him, whatever. Um, and like it kind of makes sense as like it's probably even better if you like have it in multiples. But it's also probably like a metagame call. Like it does seem like kind of a weak card against like Grixis control, for example. But yeah, like having actual like not only like hand disruption, but like having that information like is something that you normally don't have access to. So that can be good. I already mentioned Doomwake Giant. So Leaf Crown Dryad, I was running for a while in the old metagame because it was good against Grixis Delver. It's not as good anymore. Like it's not very good against Canadian. Like it's still probably good against the current Grixis Delver list, but like I'm not that worried about those. Like I think the deck's much weaker, at least against us. And like it's okay against Death and Taxes because it can block like Flicker Wisp. But yeah, I don't think it does as much as it did in the last metagame. I think that's it for enchantment creatures. Okay, so moving on. So Vizier of Remedies. I didn't talk about one other card in the main deck that I had. Devoted Druid. So like for a while I was like trying to figure out like how to like get Living Wish to be like more powerful or threatening. So like I was looking for a 2-card creature combo, and this is the best one I found. Let me know if you know a better one. But so like with Vizier of Remedies out, you can just tap for infinite green mana with Devoted Druid. So like the issue is, of course, you still need something to do with it. Like if you got Enchantresses in hand, you can just like kind of play out your hand. If you have another Living Wish, you can just automatically like Emrakul, or like Kamal, which is like in that build, I was actually like for a while running main deck Kamal. So like you could turn a Green Sun Zenith into an instant win because you could just make your guy, make your Devoted Druid like infinitely large and just attack and it has trample. So obviously like, so like the upside of this is it's a pretty compact combo, right? You're just running like the one card that's like dead, and it's not even that dead because like you know you can still make mana with it. Like it's not the best card in the world to have out, but it's not like completely dead either. Is the point? And then like you know the Vizier is just there to Living Wish for when you can. So it's pretty compact. It wasn't that good against like control, obviously, because they'll just like disrupt it. The other, what was the other issue? I don't remember the other issue. But yeah, so like I ended up dropping it, but like it does give you a potential turn 3 win. But yeah, it's kind of debatable. Like you know, in a really fast metagame, it might make sense. Anyway. So that's that. Peacekeeper's a really solid wish target against a lot of decks. It's not good against Dragon Stompy, but most other like kind of aggro decks, like Eldrazi does have answers for it, especially game 1. Game 2 and 3, they probably sided those out. Well, they probably actually didn't side out, like a Piercing Whale or whatever it is. So like you know you still have to like watch out. But like against elves or Infect. You know, Delver decks tend to reduce the number of lightning bolts they're playing. So like often, like if you wish for her, like that can buy you a few turns. She's generally like, and she's also good against Sneak and Show. Like they need a wish to be able to deal with her. Otherwise, she shuts off both like she shuts off all their game plans unless they have a wish or like they brought in a Braid or a Pyroclasm, which you know they probably wouldn't bring in a Braid, so like Pyroclasm is what you would be afraid of. Wispmare, not really a great metagame for it. The only deck it really hits is Sneak and Show, but it is like something to keep in mind as a wish target because like it's something you can wish for that has an effect on the board on turn 2. So like anything that does that like is worth thinking about. Already mentioned Eidolon. So Fiend Thunder I'll mention in conjunction with a couple of other cards. I could actually talk about Palace Jailer as well, of course. So like, yeah, so Fiend Hunter, Palace Jailer, Shriek Maw, Big Game Hunter. I guess you could also just play like there's like a Chupacabra or something that does, but it's like 4 mana anyway. Um, so so the pros and cons of these cards, like generally white mana is easier to get a hold of than black, but like both these cards are double white, so like that kind of like puts a hamper on it. Palace Jailer, like I just don't think there's that many decks that you're not going to like automatically lose the Monarch to like the following turns. Then like you start drawing them cards, which is not what you want to do. So I think that's out. Ravenous Chupacabra. There was a list that I think they went 5-0. I don't know. They did something at a tournament like back in like March that somebody else was playing that ran one of these on the sideboard as a wish target. So I mean, obviously this one's like not conditional, really. Like it just does what it does. Shriek Maw is more mana efficient, but like the fact like its limitations, non-artifact on black, are pretty significant. Like it can't kill Grizzlebrand. That matters. It's probably better than it used to be because like Deathrite's not around everywhere and Leobolt's not around everywhere, but like there's still a lot of targets you'd want to hit, like your Mug Angler, um, like Walking Ballista. Well, I guess you got Rex Sage against them, but like there are like some cards that you would like to kill that Shriekmaw doesn't kill. Big Game Hunter is more situational, but I just mentioned it because like it's you know potentially cheap. But like you kind of need to be playing against like a deck that's also running discard since you don't have your own discard engine. Yeah, so that's it for like the targeting. I don't know, like I guess either Ravenous Chupacabra or Fiend Hunter would be best. I just don't think Shriek Maw's limitations make it viable. Like I tried it a little bit. Anyway. So the next one, Sun Titan. Sun Titan I tried a little bit. Like obviously you'd have to cut Ground Seal, but like it could be a very strong wish target against like grindy decks. Obviously, like getting immediate card advantage. You know, whether it's the Argothian or the Presence or like even a Ground Seal or Banishing Light or Seal of Primordium, like you know, it's a pretty strong effect. And then you know they obviously have to deal with it pretty quick, or you know you'll just get far ahead. So that's that. Fairy Macabre and Bojuka Bog like are both wish targets you could like have to give you some outs against Reanimator. I think Bojuka Bog's a little more flexible. Like one, sometimes you need the land. Two, I think it's better against like decks running Snapcaster, like just being able to like play the land and like wipe out a lot of their targets. I think is better than like okay, like you basically like turn Snapcaster into just a 2/1, I guess, but like it's just a one-time effect, and then you're out of card. And like Bojuka Bog's better against like Life from the Loam decks, or like Dredge as a wish target. Ingot Chewer, I'm just going to mention for the same reason as Wispmare. Like, you'd obviously like have to go. Well, it would be advisable to play a Taiga if you were going to do this, but like it is a lot more relevant, I think, than Wispmare. Like, there's a lot of like, you know, you can turn to Living Wish for Ingot Chewer and destroy a Chalice or you know, an Aether Vial. There's more relevant targets for it in a lot of decks. So it's a thought. Spore Frog. I like this guy just because, like, if you have a slow hand, like, you can Living Wish for him, and you know, buy a turn, which can like be what you need to get back in the game instead of just dying. It's also pretty strong against like elves and infect. Argothian, obviously a huge, you're like one of your primary wish targets. Rex Sage, Wicker Bow, and Kazali Pride Mage. I run 2 of these because that way you can bring one in as a Green Sun Zenith target, and then like your Green Suns and your wishes are turned on for like destroying shit against like Death and Taxes or like Chalice decks, which is really important. I switched from Pride Mage to Wickerbow Elder because like for the extra 2 mana you get a 4/4, whereas like with Pride Mage, you know, once it's used, it's like dead. And like, you know, usually you're playing like defense, so like okay, it can chump block and destroy a thing, and that's like not bad, but like for the 2 extra mana you get like a 4/4 that can like trade with a Thought-Knot Seer or like just hold off like much smaller guys for a while, and just like kind of be a threat on its own. It's also a little easier to cast, like, so the Pride Mage, you know, getting the white can sometimes be a problem against like decks running like Chalice, for instance. Like that shuts off like Utopia Sprawl and Abundant Growth, so like you're less likely to have white. Alright, moving along. Runic Armasaur I tested for a while. I like it against like Death and Taxes and like Life from the Loam, like or like Knight of the Reliquary decks, like Maverick and stuff. But like most of those are like pretty favorable already, so in that way it's a little bit redundant, and like I guess theoretically it activates stuff like a Grizzlebrand, but like by then it's like, you know, it's probably too late for it to be particularly useful. So yeah, I don't think it does that much in the matchups we need more help with. Obstinate Baloth, I was running for a little while. It's pretty much like just something you can wish for under Liliana the Veil, but it's not as popular right now. Like obviously you could also have it against like Hymn to Turok, but like the only deck really running cards like that it would be good against is Grixis Control right now, and that's like a really favorable matchup, so not worried about it. Kamal was my tech for a while against Miracles. So like you can wish for him, but more often you would just side him in game 2 or 3 as a Green Sun Zenith target that you can wish for in the mid to late game when like you're just in top deck mode and they've got like a bunch of mana, because like obviously they need to counter the Green Sun, but like if he comes into play, he's really hard to kill because like if their Swords of Plowshares are out, they can't target him, and then like against mass removal, like you turn their lands into creatures in response, so that you know, you might lose your Kamal, although you can protect him with Caracas if you have it, but you know, they lose a bunch of their lands as well, and like he's just like a one-man game plan. Like you can just go to town with him until they deal with him, like so you can just hold back your other threats and like save those for once if and when Kamal dies. Primeval Titan is actually sort of like the same slot as Kamal. Primeval Titan was a thought for a little while because it's better against Sneak and Show. Like it does give you value against like Miracles. Like, you know, you can like thin out your deck dramatically, get a couple of fetch lands, then like basically like eliminate like 4 dead draws. But like against Sneak and Show, you can also like go like Show and Tell it in and go get Caracas if they've got you know, if they snuck in an Emrakul or a Grizzlebrand. And then like you've also got more mana next turn to play additional threats. So like if I'd probably run this over Kamal right now, but right now I'm running like Heliod in that spot. Mistcutter Hydra was for a while something I was testing in place of Emrakul actually. Like so like it does some similar things, like it can't be countered. But obviously it can be Swords to Plowshares, so like it's not quite as good. But like I was actually running it alongside Kamal, so like, you know, I wasn't relying on just like one of them like as wish targets, like as a kill condition. I was basically just running more like everything. Like the thing about Emrakul is it like kind of just doesn't do anything on its own. It's just like strictly a win condition. So like for a while I was trying a wish board that had more was like trying to be entirely value. So the thing about Mistcutter is it's sort of like a Planeswalker assassin. Like, it can't be blocked by Strix or Snapcaster. Like, it can be blocked by Mentor, so it's not quite as good against Miracles, and it can obviously be SDP'd or pushed, but, like, it was something, like, where, like, if they were, like, if they either didn't have removal or they were, like, tapped out or whatever, you could, like, just, like, um, wish, get the Hydra, and just, like, go over and kill their Jace. And then, like, if they deal with it, they deal with it. But, like, it eliminates their card advantage. So that was the theory. Um, but it worked okay. It was fine. But in the end, especially like online, like because of the clock, I just stuck with Emrakul because like you don't want to run out of time like when you're clearly gonna win. And Emrakul is like just your fastest, most reliable way of winning. Vaccine Shusher, I haven't actually tried, but like I think it's an interesting card. Like obviously it relies on the wish not being countered, which like usually you're actually safe with. Like usually they'll try to counter unless they're like relying on like Flusterstorm. They'll usually like let the wish resolve and then like try to counter whatever it is that you get with it. Um, it also could be good against Chalice decks, but like obviously it's also a little slow. So yeah, I don't know. But I haven't tried it. I don't know. It might be okay against like a Chalice metagame. Dryad Militant was, like I mentioned, like another 1 mana, so like you can theoretically Living Wish for it and play a turn 2 card that's relevant against Ant. Like, so it shuts off Past in Flames pretty effectively. It can also like make it really difficult for them to get Threshold for their Cabal rituals, or even like if you get it early enough, like to for them to get Spell Mastery. But like it's not as good against TES because they're more like on the ad nauseum plan than they are on Past in Flames, and like it could, I guess, like reduce the value of like whatever that like red mana Rite of Flame thing is. But it's just not as good against TES as it was against Hand. Gaddock is your main card against Storm Combo, also against Miracles and some other random decks like RIP, Helm, or Elves even actually. He can also like he's also really good because like you can Grand Sun Zenith for him on turn 2 usually. Once you brought him in post board, so he's really solid. Like I already talked about Pride Mage, Bajikabug I talked about. Caracas is another like really primary wish target. Like sometimes you actually need the land, but like it's also just really good to be able to wish for it against like Sneak and Show or like against Leovold, even though you don't see as much of them anymore. Or even like sometimes to get rid of Dahlia. Tabernacle is okay. The problem is like a lot of the decks like that it would be good against play Wasteland, and also that it doesn't actually generate mana. But it's something to think about. I haven't untested it too much, but I also like don't find myself wanting it all that often. At least not in this metagame. So Painter Servant was something I tried for a while as like an anti-Eldrazi card, basically. Just because like there was a lot of Eldrazi online, especially like big Eldrazi is more problematic than Stompy. But like it shuts off Ayavugan. Like it shuts off Ayavugan completely. It makes Eldrazi Temple a lot worse. It makes all his dust, a total wipe instead of a one-sided wipe. So and it also works with Elephant Crest, like so you name black, nothing can attack you. So like in that sense, like it's sort of competing with Peacekeeper, except like Peacekeeper obviously works on its own. Painter Servant is a little tougher, obviously, at 3 toughness. Like it's a little less easy to just like walk in Ballista, for example, but or like Endbringer. But obviously it also like needs the Elephant Grass to work. Tricks and Revoker is just a very like a very versatile card to be able to wish for. Against like Food Chain or like Aether Vial or like Cavern Harpy or Grizzlebrand. Like it just can hit a lot of things. And then, okay, so last card I already talked about Emrakul. Like, you don't get that much use out of it other than being a kill condition. Like, you can bring it in against Sneak In and Show. Like, for one, you can sneak it in. For another, like, it can give you an out against the Release the Ants kill condition. It can also be brought in against, like, Painter Servant Grindstone combo. Or, High Tide decks. And like sometimes you wish for it against like lands if they have like an exploration or fast bond star that like has a bunch of like ghost quarters, and they're going to try to ghost quarters you out of the game, which like obviously takes a while against us compared to most decks. But if you've got a slow start, sometimes that can be a little scary, and Emrakul gives you an out to that. You just wish for it, and like you shuffle your graveyard back in, and then like you got even more basics. Yeah, so that's most of the card choices. Like, obviously, I can cover like every single thing, like Magus of the Moon, for example, or like some of the blue options if you're gonna splash for blue, like Gilded Drake. Like with a wish board, your options are like a lot, obviously. But like I hope this was kind of useful in talking about like some of the card choices, and like if you're thinking about picking up the deck, like maybe things that might make sense in your metagame or things like you might want to try. Well, thanks for watching, guys.